Row C, seat 4. Oh, who is that?
Blonde, wavy hair, heart attack on legs.
Familiar face. Is she that model? Or the artist who was shot the other week? Oh, I want to lie beside her in a bath of warm glue. Jenny. Black skirt and jacket, red blouse. Can we do that?
Terrific. I don't care what the press is saying. After all you've been through and everything. Don't you reckon? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why you'd remember me. It must be a good 2 years now. Maddie? Magellan? We met at that big bash at,
Was it St. Laurent's engagement?
I can't remember. Had I started my course by then?
Your course?
Counselling through crisis. I don't want to sound all namby-pamby social worker, but it's been such a fulfilling venture. Like, there's been so much one's learned about steering people through trauma, especially bereavement, that if there's any way, I can help. The main plank of our therapy is that you have someone to talk to purge yourself.
Well, I don't know.
Good idea. I'll give you my number. How does that sound?
So, who's gonna come out and play? How about... Come on, don't be shy. Isn't she a sport, everyone? Come on. Watch out, little lady. My new jelly beans. We're gonna have some fun. Isn't she beautiful? Hold it right there. Okay. What's your name, honey?
Francesca?
Francesca. Ooh, it's hot up here, isn't it, Francesca? Hot and sticky. Thank you, Stephanie. Don't you feel a little hot and sticky, Francesca? I'll bet you're ready for a shower, huh? Come on, take a look. Just a little freshen up, okay? Step right up there. We have all the mod cons here. Now, Francesca, I want you to take off anything you don't want to get wet. So that silk jacket for a start. Now let me take care of that for you. Very good. And how about that blouse? You don't want that to shrink any? Or that skirt? Oh, that doesn't bear thinking about. Okay, now don't worry. No one's looking. Just throw it on over here. This is not voyeuristic in any way.
This is amazing.
Do you want to come with me? We've got 1 minute, 29 seconds.
Okay. How you doing in there? Are you ready for me to come and wash your back?
So you, create all these fantastic illusions for Adam Klaus? So you must know secrets.
Well, I've learned to keep my mouth shut. Ever since I told one of his girlfriends he had a hairpiece. She thought I said her piece, tried to circumcise him with a tin opener. When I open this door, just step through and take a bow.
I have no desire whatsoever to go to bed with you, or to see you naked, or to enter into any kind of relationship that involves undoing a zip.
I'm sorry I poked you last night. It was an accident.
Shall we go in?
How do you know this Griswold didn't kill Shale?
Why would he? He'd just run for it. More importantly, professional burglars don't drop their loot leaving the scene of a crime. She did that so she could have it both ways. Forced the drawer to make it look like a robbery, then left the jewellery behind so it'd be given back to her later.
And her entire alibi rests on the fact she was seen going into her office at 9:30 and was still there when the police arrived at 1.
Which, unfortunately, is proving to be the one... What? What?
No, I just can't watch people eating raw onions, that's all. It gives me indigestion.
Oh, I'm sorry. For being such a gastronomic klutz, I like onion rings. Is that okay?
So where does she work, this Serena Shale?
God, what planet have you been on? She's editor-in-chief of Eve magazine, which is grounds for prosecution in itself. I don't know. How does it work? How do you get out of a room through a closed door without someone outside noticing?
What floor's the office on?
13th. No ledges or walkways outside. Plus, the windows don't open in any case for safety reasons. Do a trick for me.
I beg your pardon?
Something from your repertoire.
I don't do tricks.
Oh, you invent them. You know all about them. Come on. What do they call it? Close-up magic.
You got a tissue in your bag? Think of a well-known city?
Constantinople.
Put your hand on mine. Now concentrate. Hard on Constantinople.
Right.
Very hard. Now lift up that relish tray.
That is... How did you do that?
You don't want to know, believe me.
How did you do it?
It's mind-numbingly banal.
Tell me, I have to know.
I set it up because people always ask me. When I dropped my fork on the floor earlier on, I grabbed a tissue out of your bag, put it in my pocket. When you went to the toilet, I gave it to the waiter, asked him to write down whatever you said, stick it under the relish tray, bring it to the table. The first tissue I threw over your head so fast you didn't see it leave my hand.
That is mind-numbingly banal.
Thank you.
So, you're gonna help me then?
Well, I'd need to know the exact layout of the office
Okay.
and the movements of everyone involved.
Fine, so if I found a pretext for the two of us to go round there?
Pretext such as what?
Oh, leave that to me. Hi, Katrina, is it?
Who are you?
I told you I'm one of those nasty, meddling writers that pervert the course of justice in this country. I came round yesterday because...
Because you think Serena killed her husband.
Do you?
I don't know what to think anymore.
Is that... Well... I hadn't seen that one coming.
Don't tell me I was naive. Sex was just a small part of what we had. I never met a man like him. He had so many great qualities. Monogamy wasn't one of them. All the same, I didn't know about Francesca. In some ways, that hit me as much as his death. But I know what she must be going through.
Why haven't you told anyone?
I was one of Headley Shale's lovers. You've met my husband. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life looking like an early Francis Bacon. I'd better go. Keep meddling, won't you? For Headley's sake.
Yeah.
Plot thickens. Guess who I ran into at the gallery? Katrina the cleaner, who it turns out was also sharing the sack with Mr. Shale. I tell you, if the guy had stamina, that's 2 models he was knocking off. Oh, and what's all this I hear about mutilated portraits in the cellar? I was down the Nick today. Your friend, Mr. Klaus, has been demanding police protection for his new assistant. Like he thinks she might be next on the killer's hit list. Suppose he could have a point, what do you reckon?
Why did you lie to me?
What?
Why did you say you lived alone?
I didn't say I lived alone. That was one of your clever deductions.
But you didn't bother to correct me.
I beg your pardon?
You wanted my help, and you knew the best way to get it was to make me think you were single and unattached.
I'm sorry, what am I being accused of here? That I led you on with inducements of sexual favours.
Oh, no, you made that very clear right up front, that you had no interest in me whatsoever.
So how did I deceive you?
By telling me, categorically, that you weren't interested in me in such a way that implied you were interested in me.
I don't have to listen to this.
Once in a while, it wouldn't hurt you to stop putting on an act and be yourself.
Oh, really? And it wouldn't hurt you once in a while not to be so infuriatingly, self-righteously bloody honest.
Hello?
You can't begin to imagine the fetid quagmire that passes for my love life. It has no stability of any kind. All right, say I was enjoying your company. Well, stranger things have happened.
Hello? Thank you, Mr. Bean.
Serena Shale, I don't think you've met Jonathan. And my friend Madeline.
Actually, we're old friends. They lied their way into my office the other day. Pity. We could have done with some TV exposure. Still, 10 out of 10 for technique. You can come and work for me any day.
How about when hell freezes over? So, how much are you offering her for all the spicy details? Be worth it, whatever it is, to up your circulation. I just wonder if you've got it right this time.
Meaning what?
The police dropped their murder charge against Stephen Griswold this afternoon.
Dropped?
In the light of new evidence.
What new evidence?
Evidence, I'm afraid, supplied by us. Francesca, I think you said you got to the house that day at what, 9:15?
9:10, 9:15.
And Mrs. Share, a silly question, but what time does the postman call at your place in the morning?
About 8:30. I think I passed him on my way out. Why?
There you are. That's what never made sense. The letter on the doormat, that's what started it all off for me. When I saw the footprint on the envelope.
And it was you came snooping around my house. My God, you've got some explaining to do.
What if you found out?
A letter addressed to Headley Shell from the Inland Revenue was lying on the floor when they discovered the body at 11:30. Why? When he'd been to that door at 9:15 to let Francesca into the house. He must have seen it. An important letter from the taxman. I mean, you'd pick it up.
And why, if he wasn't shot by the burglar, would someone else want him dead? No mystery about that. Revenge. He was sleeping with another woman. A simple crime of passion. Plus, of course, the added benefits later on when the whole thing could be exploited for commercial gain. Right, Francesca? And that's why you murdered him.
What?
You knew your husband was having an affair. We all jumped to the conclusion it was Francesca. Didn't we, Francesca? Because that's what you made us believe. But the truth of it is, Francesca wasn't his type. Unlikely as it may seem, but it was all there in his work. He was into a different kind of beauty in a woman. Something that went deeper than pore cleanser. Something he found in Katrina Topless.
Katrina?
I'm afraid.
Headley and Katrina.
That's who he really had scheduled for his bedroom romp that day. Francesca never really figured in his life at all. I think that's right, isn't it? Even after you'd stripped off for him, he still somehow managed to resist. And you couldn't handle that. What did he do? Tell you to keep the painting as a peace offering and go away?
Headley loved me. He could not live without me.
Well, you proved that. And you made him pay for that rejection. You made sure you'd go down in history as his ill-fated lover. His death would be your passport to fortune and fame.
Why are you making up all these appalling lies?
I don't think it's a lie, is it? That since all this happened, you've been headline news, commanding the sort of silly money that Serena here was prepared to pay you.
What do you expect me to say to all this? The whole thing would have been physically impossible.
Sometimes it's not hard to make things look impossible if you work at it. Wasn't too difficult to get over that wall, into the bedroom through the back garden.
He never picked up that letter in the porch because you never went in through the front door that day.
This is illegal. I'm just curious to see how these... I see what you're about. So how are things in the old investigative journalism department these days?
Yeah, still earning a crust here and there.
And Trevor?
Trevor and I were getting on each other's nerves in the end, so I did the mature thing and set fire to his underpants. Listen, since we spoke, I've had a thought. How do you fancy a drive down to the coast today? Flush out the carbon monoxide with a bit of sea air.
That's a tempting idea. And I'm going to have to put this back on once I've worked out how to unlock it. 42 seconds. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm very impressed. Takes me that long sometimes with the key.
Yeah, I can imagine. Where did you get hold of this?
Sorry. Good journalist. Have to protect my sources. They're brilliant things. You can park anywhere in London. Want to pop it back in the boot for me and we'll be off?
I nearly rang you. I get as far as the last digit and something would always stop me. I suppose it was the thought of getting sucked into another one of your grisly murder investigations. You know how you always fear the
stop this car.
Jonathan,
Flush out the carbon monoxide with some sea air.
look, just hear me out then. If you're not interested, I'll forget it, okay? You know Jack Holliday shot himself last week?
Yeah, it's the only thing he's ever done that made me laugh.
Oh, great, the poor man's dead.
Well, I don't suppose that'll stop him overacting.
One of his many homes down on the south coast, where he'd had some sort of nuclear bunker put in around the time of Afghanistan. No suicide note, but he was obviously depressed.
Yeah, due to the fact that the guy who strangled his first wife has just been released from prison with your assistance.
Alan Rokesmith didn't strangle Jennifer Holliday. He was the victim of a squalid miscarriage of justice.
As I remember it, he was found leaning over the corpse in an alleyway with a length of nylon cord in his hand.
Exactly! And that flimsy evidence, they put him away. Right, look, a brief history lesson. The night Holliday's wife is murdered, Rokesmith is in the next street discussing business with a prostitute. They both hear a scream. Rokesmith runs round to see what's happened. The young slapper pops it. Rokesmith's no sooner at the body and is untying a rope from around her neck when the coppers arrive on the scene to nick him. Circumstantial evidence he's put away for a crime he didn't commit. It's taken his sister the best part of 5 years to find that prostitute and get her to come forward. She showed me the evidence, and I just kept pestering and publicising till the Home Office finally saw sense and granted a reprieve.
All right. Can I ask where all this is leading?
To the glove compartment. Came yesterday from Holliday's second wife, who's blaming me for his death. As far as she's concerned, Rokesmith was guilty and I set him free to kill again.
You meddling, misguided cow. Thanks to your liberal, in inverted commas, pamphleteering, my husband is dead. You're no more than scum, like all reporters, an oily, egotistical parasite.
Yes, all right, you needn't read it with such relish. It's the last bit.
I know Jack was murdered, and I intend to find out how, no matter how long it takes. May you rot in Hull, Kingston Rovers.
Kirsten Rogers used to be his secretary. They got married about a year after the death of his first wife. Look, Jack Holliday killed himself. The whole thing's self-evident, but I just need to confirm it, to prove there's no other possible explanation.
How come I get roped into this?
Because there's no way she's going to let me start poking around the premises. Besides which, this is your specialist field. A body in a locked room. Please.
Where do we start?
OK, here's the script. I give Kirsten a ring on your behalf, explaining who you are, that you work for a magician, etc., etc., that you've read about the case in the papers, offering your professional services, if she's interested, in checking out that underground chamber.
And what if she's not interested?
You're telling me it was Rokesmith? But how did he get out of this room?
A lavatory and a light bulb held the key. This is how I think it happened. Several days before the murder, I can't say how long it took him, Rokesmith was down here, systematically dismantling the end wall of what was to have been the toilet. Brick by brick, till it exposed the outer shell of reinforced concrete. No chance of escaping through that. But the whole point was, he had no intention of escaping. If I'm right, Alan Rokesmith's purpose that afternoon when he brought your husband down here wasn't murder, but a double execution.
Looking back, it was all there in his eyes. Kind of hollow calm. All that creepy talk about guilt and innocence. He'd made peace with his conscience because he knew what he had to do.
He was going and taking Holliday with him. But he had to do it in a way that his mother and sister would never find out the truth. He set up a fake trip to Wales, wrote loads of stuff in his diary days beforehand to make it look as though he'd been there till last Thursday. Wrecked his own boat so that eventually they'd find the bits and assumed he'd drowned. But in fact, he was here. So he's taken down the inner wall. Now he rebuilds it, this time deeper inside the room. leaving just a very narrow recess between the new wall and the concrete behind. My guess, he swallows a bottle of something, pills, paracetamol, and with his last half hour or so, seals himself up. You look at this hole in the floor, you assume the lavatory would have gone here, with the pan facing out towards the door. Problem is it couldn't. With the neck of the pan hard against this wall, where's the cistern going to go? There's no room behind it. But if the plan was for the lavatory to go against this wall, that's where your cistern's going to go. And now, you've got a wall in the way. It won't fit. The reason being that this wall is further out now than it used to be. The fact that the brickwork looks a little different you'd never notice because Rokesmith switched bulbs, so the light in here will be a lot dimmer. You want to do this?
Hi. What are you doing here?
We're right next door with the show.
Of course you are. Of course. How's it going?
Oh, we've had a few hiccups this week.
I was just
I'm
about
Shelford.
Yes, sorry.
Pleased to meet you.
Jonathan Creek.
Madeline's a little shy because, shall I tell him? The two of us are on a blind date.
Get out of here.
I placed an advertisement in one of those contact columns. Madeline replied, and here we are, testing the water, as 'twere, to see if we want to get into bed together. Not literally, I hasten to add. That's just a term we use in corporate management. Though speaking for myself, I have to say one of Cupid's arrows has definitely found its mark.
So, anyway, I expect I'll be seeing you around.
Unless you guys fancy a bite to eat, I'm
Not
starving.
really. I'd rather just be
Oh, I
getting
say, what a
back.
great idea.
I think I'm going to risk the homemade vegetable lasagna.
Sounds good to me, Jonathan. I'm on for that. First of all, I need to pay a visit to the little boys' room. Me?
You're really enjoying this, aren't you? Watching me squirm.
To a large extent. Where is it then?
What?
The 10-year-old photo they sent you, before he ballooned up to 15 stone and started molting.
You've really got a nerve. Do you think I'm so shallow I'd only agree to meet someone if I had proof that they were young and good-looking? I find that amazingly offensive.
Can I see it? Frightening. You know, this could be unique. A rare example of the passport syndrome in reverse. Oh, 2 lasagnas, please.
Don't know what I want. Not even hungry. Drop of chili will do me with some rice. A spot of salad, some garlic bread, a jacket potato. Oh, and some crisps.
Anyway, what's the SP on Zola Zbyszewski? Think she did it?
Oh, what is this now? Not mind reading. I can't cope with it.
The case is in the papers, her book's in your bag. I wasn't trying to be clever.
It's early days, but it doesn't look good. Police found an earring outside the victim's door, in which they found traces of Zola's skin cell tissue. She swears blind is not one of her collection.
Someone could have doctored it, using genetic material Kirchin had on file.
Yes, I had managed to work that out for myself.
Any obvious candidates?
Daughter seems devoted enough. Boyfriend's like Judas Iscariot with highlights. Don't know what planet he's on. Haven't met her manager yet, Mr. Brickman. He'd be glad to see the back of Kirchin, certainly, but he'd hardly want to frame his own client for murder.
Tricky.
Yes, but I'll get there, so don't go worrying yourself.
Look, it's not my fault, all this. Come on.
What?
But this plan of yours to make me insanely jealous by turning up here tonight with some stunning hunk has all gone horribly wrong. Thanks to the bastard son of Forrest Gump in there. You must have known it was a risk.
That is the most unbelievably arrogant, egotistical thing I've...
That was unfortunate. I completely misjudged the water pressure on those taps, and of course it went everywhere. Fortunately, it's not urine, so it won't stain. Excuse me.
I hope you don't mind. My friend Jonathan has been helping me with this story. In fact, it's down to him that we've finally got to the truth.
You mean, you know?
Victoria, I don't think we should be talking to reporters about something as sensitive.
I brought her in on all this to try and help Mum, which she did. So we can just listen to what she's got to say, OK? What are they?
2 videos, which between them tell the whole story. Although before we look at them, Mr. Brickman, I wonder if you could tell us what the number is on your mobile phone.
What's that got to do with anything?
It's a simple enough question.
0850 078 674.
Interesting.
What is this?
Why did you ring my flat yesterday without leaving a message?
I never rang your flat. Why would I want to ring your flat?
So how come when we dialed 1471 to see if any calls had been logged, it was your number we wrote down?
You rang me at 11:45, the same moment the wardrobe arrived, because you wanted to make sure there was no one at home.
You killed my mother. You killed her! You killed her!
I loved her! I loved her. Like every other man who ever met her. God save us all.
You loved her. And that's why you filmed her, isn't it, Mr. Brickman? On this tape. May I?
This isn't real.
We talked about the fence being 6 feet high. You saw a very tall man looking over the top. Well, I saw a short man standing on a box. It's all to do with the movement of the camera. A tall man standing on the ground would have walked along the fence at this point to follow her from room to room, while a man standing on a box just swivels the camera to keep her in frame. A subtle distinction, fairly meaningless in itself. Until we come to this.
Summer holiday, no more worries for me. Oh, sorry.
It taught me that if you're to achieve any kind of presence in this world...
That is the same thing we just saw on there.
On the TV Zola was watching.
Not hard, was it? To whack it all together. Porridge and Summer Holiday, both available at the local video shop. And the Newsnight titles you just taped the following night. Of course, Zola's interview, you recorded off-air anyway. In other words, everything we just saw was a fake. She knew you were filming her with the camcorder because that's exactly what you'd arranged. When she pointed the remote at the set, she wasn't watching live television at all. She was switching on the video to play this tape.
No.
Because when you filmed her, it wasn't Thursday night, it was Friday night because she wasn't even here on Thursday night.
This is all lies.
Because that's the night she went out to murder David Kirchin.
No!
Hi.
In here, I'm cooking. What's the matter with you?
No, I was just reminded of that quote by Robert Oppenheimer. I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
I did the crouton slightly, that'd be funny.
I overdid the crouton slightly. It's like Gandhi's funeral pyre in here.
Yes, and now you've put the gas out, thank you very much. I was getting on fine till you arrived.
This lightness of touch you have in the kitchen is a joy to behold.
So, tell me about Pilgrim. Is he capable of murder? And I've heard him sing, obviously.
Hmm?
I don't get it. You've got 6 witnesses, all saw her go in at 4 o'clock. Now, if that's right, he hasn't got a prayer. And yet he swears blind he was in the room all afternoon, fully conscious, and saw no one. He's either very stupid or very devious.
Or neither.
What do you mean?
Well, maybe the reason he's sticking to his story is because it's true. Is that supposed to be doing that?
2 more minutes. What do you mean, true? A girl can't vanish into thin air while walking through a pair of French... Do you know, I never know when you're winding me up. That's the trouble. Now, do you want to pick us out a bottle of something?
Any particular one? What's this?
Oh, petrol.
Petrol?
Well, I'm not going to leave it in the car overnight. Things get nicked.
I'll put it out in the hall, shall I? Oh, the canisters of napalm.
So this is the guy, you reckon, Jacob Flowers, who stuck the note under my wiper. What's his connection with Pilgrim?
You heard of an American cult called the Creed of Eden?
Funnily enough, no.
Well, don't ask me what they're into, some kind of eco-religious thing. The world is God's garden, all life is sacred. It's easier for a rich man to enter a camel if he stands on a box. Well, this character is their grand prophet and founding father. And if you know your history of rock music...
Intimately.
Then you'll know it was during Edwin Drood's tour of the States in July '87 that Roy Pilgrim became a disciple of the Order, leading effectively to the breakup of the group and some fairly deadly solo albums about rainforests and dolphins.
So, Flowers is going to stick up for Pilgrim because they're buddies. Or maybe he knows something else about all this that we don't. Don't scrape that off. It's meant to be that colour. It's Cajun. Blackened catfish.
Looks more like halibut to me.
Well, blackened halibut, then. I had to improvise. Can we have less of the pedanticism and just eat?
The word is pedantry.
The logic of shelling out millions of pounds every year to people who had sex with trees was a bit lost on you, wasn't it? Roy's interest in the Creed was on the wane. Of course, once you were married, oh dear, serious cash flow problems. So, she had to be scared off. Sharpish.
You saying this was like a trick? To set me up?
Like all the best tricks, it was blindingly simple, in theory, and fantastically elaborate in practice. But then to a bunch of people building an ark in their back garden, all things were possible. Staging the break-in and putting him out were the easy bit. An hour later, he comes round to find he's trapped inside the White Room. Help! He remains fully conscious for the rest of the day, during which the only thing that comes through the door is a small, red-bellied frog. At the same time, a teenage girl, not noted for a frog-like appearance, is seen entering the door from the outside by a bunch of boys at the back gate. There's no way it adds up, until you realise the whole thing was a classic piece of misdirection, which relied upon us all making one very false assumption, that in both versions of events, we were talking about the same door. Shame you couldn't have followed that frog, Roy, as it hopped back outside. I think you'd have been impressed by the handiwork of the drones down at Hogsbelly Farm. God knows how long it took them to come up with an exact replica of the room down to every last detail. But I think we can assume months of planning and careful preparation when you went around. Sifting through the fan mail for a suitable candidate and forging the letter that would bring her here. Tracy Cook was instructed to call at the back gate at 4 o'clock because you knew there'd be plenty of witnesses then to watch her going in. Inside, I don't know, she's told us to change her plan. Roy's going to meet her at the farm. Whatever, she's whisked off out the front to be hidden away somewhere. All this time, Roy's been sitting in what he thinks is his own back room, jotting down songs. Of course, the one thing you couldn't duplicate was the hand-carved speakers from Africa. But that's no problem, you just took them with you. Finally, it gets dark. Roy nods off. And that's when you pull the second switch, making sure he won't wake up on the way. And back he goes into his own room, along with the speaker cabinets, which we know ended up the wrong way round.
As compromising setups go, it was a gem. The man's convicted by his own honesty, while you lot leap about in his defence to keep the handouts coming.
Well, you've got a colourful imagination.
And you've got a colourful frog. Lots of them, we reckon? Where's your little book?
Look familiar? The Anasazi river toad. Much prized by the Indians of New Mexico and many others for its narcotic secretions. Quickest way to get a fix, basically, is to put it in your mouth and suck.
Being careful not to overdo it, or you end up like poor old Toby.
That's what joined it all up, I have to say. If these frogs are being bred on a commune at Hogsbelly Farm, how the hell did one of them appear at these French windows nearly 15 miles away? Unless it had gone for a very long walk or hitched a lift. There was only one explanation. It had never left the farm in the first place. And as ludicrous as it sounds, the window and the room and Roy Pilgrim had to be there as well.
I'm sorry, I think my head may explode. I can't take this in.
The lads are turning your place over even as we speak. Now, you could save them time by telling us where she is. But what the hell? Let them have fun.
The body was over there, but there's blood on the desk as well.
Fair old struggle between the pair of them by the look of it. These books would have come from that top shelf. Look as if they've been used as missiles or something. Like they've been thrown across the room.
And why? Out of all this lot, why pick 3 books from a shelf he could have hardly reached?
Unless he didn't. And they flew across the room on their own. Can I say 2 words here? If anyone's listening, Amityville Horror.
Why don't you go and see to Kathy? That sedative will be wearing off now.
You know I'm right. You just can't face the truth.
You see why I need someone else here. Someone from the planet Earth. Night seems to have stolen up on us. You'll stay over, won't you? Both of you. It feels like we're teetering on the edge of reality. I really don't want to fall off. I'm sorry.
How can you eat?
Got no appetite.
Why isn't someone doing something? Instead of just sitting here, I mean, he's dead, and we're just sitting here. For God's sake, Elliot's been murdered! And what have they said? I can't believe this. One policeman. How's he going to find the killer standing out there? You watch him. All he does is wander about by the gate. What's he think? The killer's going to walk past? I mean, it's a joke.
Kathy, that's just a duty constable posted there to keep away reporters and sightseers. The CID are carrying out a thorough investigation, I promise you. Well, what have we got? Some books that fell off a top shelf. A suit of armour that was completely empty. It doesn't exactly shout at you.
I don't know. How it was done is a puzzle. But what really stumps me is why. If, even for the sake of argument, your husband killed himself and wanted to make it look like murder, he's not going to do it in a hermetically sealed room. Completely defeats the object. Equally, if whoever killed him wanted to make it look like suicide, somehow rigged up the locked room, why stab him in the back? And why leave that dictaphone behind? Which he must have known proved he'd been attacked. Well, early night, I think. Sleep on it. Might just get the rest of those books down tomorrow, do a final check on the shelves. For now, say good night.
Yes. Good night.
Night.
Dr. Strange had locked the door to make sure he wasn't disturbed. First off, he deals with his morning mail. Signs the book someone sent him. Licks the flap to seal the envelope. Maybe it tastes a bit funny, but he's not going to read anything into that. He's not going to know he's just swallowed some lethal hallucinogenic drug. Only now it's just a matter of time before he starts tripping out, seeing things that aren't there.
Continuing, conclusion drawn on the mutative role of aflatoxins and aspergillus mold in the liver cells of turkeys. Oh my God. No! No!
Tumbling off the shelves onto that blade had to be an accident. Something the killer, no one could have foreseen. The drug was the murder weapon. The sword, a rather horrible bonus.
Elliot, do you have any change? I've got nothing smaller than a 50 for the taxi driver. Elliot!
Something set that gorilla off. We all saw it. I just think it's too much of a coincidence otherwise. It has to be the envelope. Some point, later in the evening, it went back in the study, looking for a snack.
So, if poor old Samson hadn't chewed his paper... Hang on. You said that's a made-up name. Are we ever going to trace the person that sent it?
What was interesting about the address on the envelope the killer sent was the name of the street. Here, look. Polo Park Lane, when it should have been Pool Park. Polo instead of pool. 2 letters transposed like that suggests to me a typing error.
Except it's been written by hand.
But it could have been copied from something that had been mistyped in the first place.
If someone wanted to kill a famous scientist and wanted to find out where he lived, they'd write to his publishers?
Who would simply forward it here? They'd never give out his address to the public, any more than Elliot would when he wrote back. He knew how many cranks there were out there.
As I discovered when I checked his files. So what if they wrote to someone else in the house who wasn't so careful? Kathy Strange, actress, daughter-in-law of Elliot Strange, would receive a fan letter sent on by her agent from someone who knew she lived in the same house. She'd write back. A little thank you. Address at the top of the page. Except she mistypes Pool Park Lane as Polo Park Lane. And I'm afraid that's exactly what happened. On October the 7th, you wrote to Alistair Tyree of Nantwich in Cheshire, Alsager House, 17, Polo Park Lane. Could be an almighty coincidence. But his saliva checks out against that envelope, and you find he's a paid-up liberationist with known drug connections.
You wouldn't be at all surprised.
I wouldn't, actually.
You're a cocky sod.